Okay, hi friends. Welcome back to my channel, The Living Well with Bipolar Disorder. I'm Patty, and today I have a really cool guest and one of my dearest friends, Kylar Dunn, who's going to share some information. We're going to talk about his first book, um, called Intuitive Fitness for Empaths. I've read it. It's wonderful. And I'm hoping that my viewers, my subscribers, and anyone watching this video will reach out and hopefully read it for themselves, because I think it's just an extraordinary book. And I've learned a lot from it. And I think you will too. So let me introduce Kylar. And Kylar, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I am an empath. I very much connect with everyone else's emotional experience around me, and for most of my life, it was more so than connecting with my own emotional experience. So I was kind of living vicariously through others, or just aware, kind of managing, feeling responsible for their experiences, and that came through a childhood of trauma and developing complex PTSD, and it affected my health in major ways. I didn't realize that was the cause at the time, but I had hypothyroid, hypoadrenia, inability to build muscle, and extreme fatigue. And so throughout my childhood and into my early 20s, I would attempt to work out, get stronger, do all the things I thought I was supposed to do, and I would end up weaker and smaller. And it was really scary, really overwhelming, really frustrating. And so I got obsessed with understanding strength training and nutrition and exercise and personalities and life coaching, like all the things related to what might impact my health. And it's been a 19-year healing journey. And I'm a massage therapist and personal trainer and life coach, and so I've actually thought about and wanted to write this book for probably 15, 16 years. And I've given presentations on the subjects that I talk about throughout those years. And yeah, so I'm just really passionate about helping people understand their own trauma and their empathy. And there's benefits to it that are really beautiful, but there's also major challenges with it, including energy loss. And you are probably working way harder than you think you are, and way harder than most people in your life, because you're managing all this stuff and trying to keep up with everyday life, which is overwhelming. So yeah, that's my intent with sharing this information and kind of sharing my story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the first things I got from reading the book was that um, it's a really gentle approach. If you're just looking at it from the fitness perspective, like if anyone's looking at it thinking this is a book about how to, bulk up and get stronger and do these insane workouts and things like that, it's just not about that. And I think that's a really important takeaway from the book, because in our society now, there's so much pressure, despite what your life experience is, that you're supposed to like just go at these workouts and never give up and just work as hard as you can each workout, and forget the tiredness, and forget other factors that may be contributing to your energy
Yeah.
those days. And whereas you know, in your book, you really describe just a completely different view on fitness, and that it's okay to consider all aspects of your health and your childhood experience and that relationship to exercise and fitness and overall health. And it's such a different turn, but I think it would be, I think it's incredible because we don't see that view very often. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, for me, with my running and my fitness experiences, I was very much into pushing my body as far as I could, ignoring my body when it was telling me to stop, or take a break, and just ignore, like I work out through injuries and fatigue, and I didn't want to feel weak, which is something you mentioned in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And as if, you know, taking a day off was a sign of weakness, which it's not. It's a sign you're taking care of your body.
Yeah.
And so I think that that kind of focus of the book is really, I think, one of the biggest benefits people are going to get from reading the book. And I also think that it's going to be kind of life sustaining, or because so many fitness books or trainings or information you read online or whatever it may be, a lot of it are like 8-week programs or 12-week programs or things like that, whereas yours is more of a focus on your lifetime of
Yeah.
fitness.
Yeah.
And um, and so I really liked that perspective. And it's
Mm-hmm.
often one I don't think people get that message at all. They think, oh, I'm going to fix everything in 12 weeks. And
Yeah. Right.
um, and instead focusing on living a long life and living in a healthy way so that you can enjoy life and be happy and heal if that's what you're wanting, if you have to heal from childhood trauma, and sort of integrating fitness in a gentle way with that. And I don't know that that ever gets talked about very often.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
really appreciated that part of the book. Um, and I know you, in the book, you give, you know, some examples of exercises and things like that. And I also liked in the book how you, when you were talking about specific exercises and strengthening your body and things like that, I like that you mentioned that you don't have to follow, you know, an exact routine. And
Yeah.
if I'm getting this wrong, then let me know. But
Yeah.
that if, like, if all you can do is one set or 3 reps or
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
then that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
That the focus is slowly getting stronger and building that up, and
Right.
not having to follow, you know, these strict guidelines. Um,
Yeah.
and uh, and so it's a very gentle approach to fitness,
Mm-hmm.
which we
Yeah.
just don't, we also don't see that very often. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so
think so yeah, there's a lot of reliance on formulas and a lot
mhm,
of elevation of formulas.
mhm,
So, you know, when the trainer says do 2 sets of 15, or the fitness magazine says do 3 sets of 10, and you know, it tells you what weight to start at and all this stuff, like they're guessing
mhm.
because every body is different. Every
Yeah,
person reading that is going to have different, you know, native strength currently and capacity.
mhm,
And your body doesn't know that it's supposed to get stronger just because you did, you know, 3 sets of 10 bicep curls with 8-pound weights.
right,
How does your body know when it's supposed to get stronger? It
right,
knows that when you reach fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, it doesn't really matter what weight you grab to start with or what movement you choose to do, whether body weight squat or weighted squat or kettlebell swing or whatever. Your body knows when it's fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
So when those particular muscles and muscle motor units run out of ATP, the fuel in the muscle, for that set, and it starts producing lactic acid, you feel a little bit of burning in the muscle, that's when your body knows, oh, we just ran out of capacity. We actually need to get stronger.
Yeah.
And if you do that a couple times in a row for that day, then you've sent that signal to your body and you're going to be getting stronger as a result of that. So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, they could be push-ups against the counter, could be body weight squats, could be rows with a resistance band, but reaching fatigue, not necessarily like an exact 10, 12, or 15 reps and then stopping, but actually going until you reach fatigue. And that may be 3, like you said, 3 reps
Mm-hmm.
and you're burning,
Yeah.
then that's totally fine. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the other piece of not being external with your fitness. And it's like, what did the magazine say to do? Or what did the trainer say to do? Like just actually being in your body
Mm-hmm.
and feeling the fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is something that anyone that has experienced trauma, um, we're often not very good at that
Yeah,
because we uh, just, I think there it's a learning process because even for me, I've had to, like, the concept of listening to your body is really strange because like I experienced sexual abuse when I was a child,
yeah,
and so what happens with that, and I know some people share the same experience, is your body and your person don't belong to you. They
yeah.
belong to the abuser. And that's
Mm-hmm,
one way that we basically stay safe and block out what's happening and block out a lot of those emotions and those fears, um,
mm-hmm,
is basically giving away your body to something else
mm-hmm,
and not listening to it. We don't want to listen to it because these horrible things are happening. We
mm-hmm,
would rather kind of just throw it away and hide it.
mm-hmm.
And um, and so I think from this book, you get kind of the sense that it's okay to listen to your body and how important that is.
Yeah,
And whether you lift weights or run like I do,
yeah,
or whatever it is, play pickleball,
yeah,
um, your favorite or
yep,
one of your favorites.
yeah,
Um, it's just so important to kind of get to know yourself,
mm-hmm,
and and I describe it, and some people describe it the same way, as reparenting,
mm-hmm,
and just like completely undoing everything that happened to you as a child.
mm-hmm,
And um, from the perspective of fitness, um, just really taking care of yourself
yeah,
and knowing that there's value in that, and that you're a valuable person, and that you
mm-hmm,
deserve, just for being you, you deserve this healthy body, and that it
mm-hmm,
belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the abuser anymore. And
mm-hmm,
so I think your book is really going to help people with that.
mm-hmm.
And so I'm so proud of you because you really kind of approached and nailed a lot of these elements that are just not talked about. And
Mm-hmm.
it's holding people back. I really think it does hold people back from healing, um, when they don't have this knowledge or this experience that you write about in your book. So I really think readers are really going to grow a lot and change for the better after reading the book. So,
Cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. One of the things I talk about in the beginning is claiming your sovereignty.
mhm,
And for most empaths, because they do naturally, and most trauma survivors are empaths, and
mhm,
empathy has helped them navigate their traumatic environment
right,
safely. It gives them skills to um, placate an abuser, um, or negotiate, or whatever.
mhm,
And so it's good for survival, but it's not good for long-term thriving.
right,
And
right,
so part of the process of the healing for the empath is almost becoming, on the scale, a little bit closer to being narcissistic, in
mhm,
that you have to prioritize your life,
right,
and you have to, like, even just to claim your sovereignty and claim your body back, like, this body belongs to me now
mhm,
again, and there's no one else on the planet more responsible for me than me. So I am going to claim ownership and not just allow the people around me to even have their preferences necessarily,
right,
when that doesn't match my preferences.
mhm,
So it's not necessarily, at times it can look like going to war, and sometimes the healing process, includes being angry and really being powerful in that sense again. But ultimately, it's about, I am me, you are you. You have your preferences, I have my preferences, and I'm going to be the one to honor my preferences. And
mhm,
where our preferences align, then we have more intimacy. And where
right,
our preferences don't align, then we don't have intimacy, and we're going elsewhere.
right,
So yeah, so sovereignty, or taking ownership, or taking your power back, or claiming your body, or all the ways that it could be applied or visualized, is essential for the empath, who's used to being accommodating, who's used to being
mhm,
overly understanding of others, used to kind of second guessing or putting themselves second, because they're so hyper aware of everyone else's preferences and
right,
desires,
yeah,
goals, and all of that. Because on the narcissistic end of that personality or temperament trait, um, the narcissist isn't always abusive.
mhm,
They're just very in tune with themselves,
mhm,
and less in tune with everyone else, or
right,
not in tune at all with everyone else sometimes.
right, yeah,
So their preferences and desires, and the story that they are living, is very loud and very
mhm,
strong and very powerful. So they kind of draw in empaths because their signal is so strong,
right,
and empaths tend to cater to them because they tend to cater anyway. But then this person is very, very, very clear signal about who they are, and what their story is, and what their beliefs
mhm,
are, and all of that. So that's kind of where empaths get swept away by the
mhm,
narcissistic personality.
yeah, right, right. Do you feel like in your journey, um, y- uh, you've kind of felt like you've developed a little bit of that narcissism just to survive, really? Or
Um, yes. So I've had to work hard to become more balanced,
yeah,
um, in taking care of myself, because I feel like healed empaths are capable of being the best human possible,
hmm,
because they still have that empathy. I don't think that ever goes anywhere.
right,
And they do have that awareness and that sensitivity and that insightfulness. But then at this point in my journey, I get to choose. And I was actually talking with a friend last night about this who's going through a really, really hard time, and she was apologizing for burdening me with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I've really practiced allowing people to be responsible for their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And as an unhealed empath, I would have been all over it,
Yeah,
trying
right.
to take that on and feeling guilty for, not being able to do more, or not being able to sacrifice myself more, or whatever, because
Mm-hmm.
my spiritual mentor, Amanda Flaker, always talks about how the empath wound is, I must suffer until no one else suffers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not possible. The only
Right,
way we can actually help bring healing is to allow healing ourselves.
right.
The only way we can bring personal empowerment and sovereignty to others is to embody it ourselves. So as we heal the planet, we heal other humans.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have definitely practiced prioritizing myself in a lot of different
Right.
ways
Mm-hmm.
and honoring my own preferences, which does feel narcissistic compared to where I was.
Right. Yeah.
And yet I can have compassion and empathy for others, but it's not to the point where it derails my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would be an empath as well. And you've talked about how exhausting it could be, but I also think it's important to uh, be an example for other people. And even small things like at work, if I was asked to work like a double shift,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a really important workout planned, um,
Mm.
then you know, in previous times I would say, oh, well, this is more important than me, because I want to help out and I don't want to cause them more stress. I want to make
Mm-hmm.
everything better for
Yeah.
everybody. And but I've slowly realized that it's okay to say, I can't, you kind of compromise so that I feel fulfilled. And then, it kind of becomes more of a team effort, so to speak, than just me giving everything away. And
Yeah.
then in a sense, kind of feeling like I have nothing left. And
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
and so now I can say, well, I'll come back. I need to go home and do a workout, and then I can
Mm-hmm.
come back and help out.
Right.
And that's taken uh, years to be able to do.
Yeah.
Um, but I also know I can't be 100% if I'm not kind of honoring who I am and what I want and what I need, especially. And I think to be kind of an effective empath, I guess you could say, um, although that sounds kind of narrow, but uh, in order to give to other people and give some of your energy, you have to save some for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise,
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
going to
Yeah.
experience burnout. And I think that's why there's a lot of careers, anyone going into, you know, being a therapist or working in like child protective services and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of empaths lean towards those kinds of careers where you're a helper.
Yeah.
And burnout is huge
Yeah.
because they work and work and work to make sure everyone else is okay
Yeah.
and take care of everyone else. And then it catches up to them when they're not taking care of themselves and making
Mm-hmm.
themselves a priority. It catches up to them. They feel burnout and then they can't help anybody else, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Um, and so I think it takes time to be able to balance that. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
in the book, you really talk about that in it's okay. It's really okay to take time for yourself. And it's important.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise you can't really be there fully for other people.
Yeah.
and um and it's okay to make that decision in terms of how much you want to help,
Yeah.
and without giving up too much of yourself.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the lesson a lot of people could learn, whether they've had trauma in their life or not. I think it's especially important for people that have experienced trauma. Um, just because, like for me, it would lead to, if I didn't save some for
Mm-hmm.
myself,
Mm-hmm.
um, it just leads me down the path of depression and self-harm, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because then I feel guilty about not giving enough of myself. And so then I feel
Yeah.
guilty, and then I don't like myself. And so then I
Right.
start destroying myself,
Right.
um, in small ways. And
Yeah. It's such
yeah,
an interesting dynamic because just the personality or temperament trait of empath with narcissist. So, and I know that, like, as soon as someone says narcissist, there's like, oh, that's the bad guy, and
right.
it's not necessarily the case. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes it really is, but it's the personality temperament, and so the narcissist is so in tune with themselves, and the empath is so in tune with everyone else,
Mhm.
that it creates this really weird dynamic. And so the
Right.
narcissist rarely has self doubt because the narcissist is in tune with how hard they're working or how hard they think they're working. So
Right.
they're always talking about how amazing they are and how, all the things they've accomplished and all this stuff, and they just kind of ooze self-confidence because they're in tune with it. And
Right.
then the empath is more in tune with everyone else, like, wow, how amazing are they? Like, that's really cool. And like, wow, that's really impressive. And then they see the narcissist that's talking about themselves, like, wow, they're so confident and they've accomplished so many things, and like, wow, that's crazy. And then
Right.
they kind of forget about what they're doing, and they don't realize that their energy is being drained because
Mhm.
they're so in tune with everyone else, where the
Mhm.
narcissist energy is being conserved because they're really prioritizing themselves.
Right.
And so then the empath finds that they have a hard time keeping up with normal everyday activities because they're being drained.
Mhm.
And then the narcissist, is, has this strong story about how hard they're working, and they're like, wow, you really are having a hard time keeping up, aren't you? And then the empath's like, wow, yeah, I guess I am. And then the empath thinks that they're not doing very well, when in
Right.
reality they're actually handling way more stress and way more data intake than the narcissist can even imagine,
Mhm.
because the narcissist almost has like earplugs in and their sunglasses on because they're so in tune with themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it just like, and then you got the self-doubt over here when you're already doing more than you should be doing,
Mhm.
and and you're struggling to keep up, and then you think you're a failure, you must be lazy,
Yeah.
and um, you know, not working hard enough, not carrying your fair share,
Yeah.
and you're actually doing too much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I've certainly learned that as well for myself. And I've really had to kind of take a stance, like in relationships and in work and things like that, and just internally. Um, I'm just somebody that needs a lot of downtime. I need to
Yeah,
regenerate. And others tend to look at that as laziness,
right.
or being self-absorbed, or um,
Yeah,
taking the easy way out,
right.
and really it's not, because I over time with my running, I've had to realize that, you know, my type of training that I do can exhaust my body,
Hmm.
and it does actually. I can't say it can't,
Yeah,
it does.
yeah,
And I have to pay attention to resting my body as well. And I didn't used to do that. I do it a lot more now, just because um, some of the training that I do, like right now, I have to be very in tune with my body, nutrition wise and sleep
Mhm.
wise, especially,
Mhm.
and rest time. And I have to remember how important rest is for my body
Yeah.
to regenerate and go
Yeah.
back and and do other things. And that rest ends up making me very strong, because when I can go into a hard workout feeling good and feeling strong and feeling rested, those workouts are amazing. And
Yeah.
I feel very accomplished. And in the end, I'm like, yeah, I just did that.
Mhm.
And my
Mhm.
body grows stronger because of that. So it grows
Yeah.
stronger because I've rested and taken care of my body.
Yeah.
Whereas if I just kept breaking it down and breaking it down, I'm not going to get stronger. I'm going to get possibly injured,
Yeah.
which is a big setback. Uh, and yeah,
Mhm.
so, but it's a huge lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Um, and even with my kind of in my own family, my biological family, I can see it in especially my sisters. They're the ones I have more of a relationship with.
Mm.
That, you know, I I even remember, it was a while ago. I think they're more accepting of my method of running. But
Oh.
the idea of walking during a race or
Oh.
walking during training
Yeah.
was seen sort of as, well, that other people were going to look down on me for walking.
Oh, yeah.
or or that it was some sort of weakness to take walk breaks,
Right.
because how we all grew up, that would have been seen as a weakness.
Right.
Really, in my sport, in ultra marathon running, walk breaks are
Mhm.
really important,
Yeah. Essential.
especially
Yeah.
for some of the people at the front that are going to win the race. They're a different breed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they can run a lot more of the course. But I've
Yeah.
had to learn over the years that um that those walk breaks are very important in order to
Yeah.
finish the event and to stay
Right.
strong the whole time.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, what's wrong with walking?
Right. Right.
it's
Right.
not a it's not a weakness. Walking
Right.
is not a weakness,
Because you're
and it
doing an
doesn't
ultra
mean,
marathon, so like, yeah,
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
you're going a long ways. That's going to be a lot
yes,
of hours.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, for this particular race that I'm training for, the training doesn't involve just constant miles after miles after miles of running. It actually involves more climbing and
Mhm.
things that are going to more replicate the race, because I'm not
Yeah.
going to run the whole race. I know I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But there's other elements like being a faster walker and being able to climb up hills a lot faster.
Yeah.
And the part I'm really going to struggle with and is eating enough.
Mhm. Right.
That's going to be really, I do find hydration wise, but food wise, I forget about what my body actually needs. And
Mhm.
I don't know if it stems from my experience with an eating disorder or
Mm,
not.
right. Maybe.
It might, and but it's been such it's a steep learning curve for a lot of people, I think.
Mhm.
And just to learn, and you mentioned it in the book that I think you referred to it, and I've heard you talk about it before, that
Mhm.
anything that you're doing consistently, that
Yeah.
consistency is really key to
Yeah.
growing stronger. And and that's more important than trying to lift heavier than you did the day before, or
Yeah.
uh that even if you can only do one rep or one set of one exercise, if you do that consistently, like you were talking about in the book, when you first started, there
Yeah.
were some exercises or your style of training, you could only, I think you said you were really only training one body part once a week, or do I have that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, once every 2 weeks. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I had, since I was about 20, I think I'd been collecting books on strength training
Mm-hmm.
and bodybuilding and like, like what can I learn about this? How do I get stronger? And uh, you know, I failed to get stronger all the way to 22. So, but I was like reading all these books and like digesting, like knowing, okay, you need to be working each muscle group, ideally multiple times a week. Or if you're splitting up the body, then maybe once a week.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to do these big workouts, mostly full body. Sometimes I can't remember. I don't think I actually broke it down to smaller than that at that time. So I was trying to do these full body workouts and just like exhausting myself. Like I would get weaker and
Right.
smaller with consistency. So so I intuitively at one point decided, you know, maybe if I made the muscle group small enough that I could wear that muscle group out, still reach fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
but only a small muscle group, one movement. And so I thought, oh, how would I split the body into 10 to 14 different ways?
Mm-hmm.
And then I did this experiment of like one movement, one muscle group every day, and not coming back to that again until 2 weeks later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And according to everything I'd been reading, like that was too far apart.
Mm-hmm.
Like that wasn't going to work. That wasn't a
Right.
frequent stimulus enough for your body to remember and actually try to get stronger. So, but what was crazy, because I obviously with that span of time, in a month and a half, I'd only gone through each muscle group 3 times,
Mhm.
which it
Yeah.
just seems crazy. Like that's way too long to go
Yeah.
between. But what I was so excited first, um, I wasn't wearing myself out. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't like wiping myself out. I had energy for the rest of the day each day.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then also every time I came back to a muscle group, I noticed I could do a few more reps.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, wow, I am actually measurably getting stronger
Right.
as
Right.
every single time I'm going to fatigue. So that means I'm just going to go as long as I can,
Mm-hmm.
basically, with this movement. And I was able to do more reps each time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was incredible and so encouraging. But it was like the first example of me doing something intuitively
Mm-hmm.
in response to what my body was telling me rather than just following the textbook.
Right.
Applying the
Right.
textbook, but adapting it to my needs.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's really important. I think that's one reason I've never actually followed a training plan for my
Uh-huh.
races.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Mm.
I just because like I would get really intimidated because some of them I'd read about and they say, well, this is the minimum amount you should do.
Yeah.
And um,
Mhm.
and it just doesn't recognize that everybody is at a different phase,
Yeah.
their bodies are different. The
Yeah.
amount of load they can put on their body without getting injured is different. And over time I've realized my way of doing this, my way of training is working. I finish these races and I feel really good
Mm.
and very, very few injuries. And so it's kind of,
That's
I've had
cool.
to intuitively think about, what's best for my body.
Yeah.
I still train a lot. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but I've grown. I mean, I've been running for 27 years now.
Hmm.
I've just learned to really, I go by more about what my body feels like than what some prescribed, training plan does.
Yeah.
And
What does
I
that tend
think
to
I
look
would
like?
burn out. What's that?
What does that tend to look like in your experience? So is it like you do you train like every other day and you just kind of see what your body's feeling based on how it feels after the last training session?
Hmm.
Or like, what does kind of that process look like of you being intuitive?
Yeah. So, I guess a good example is last year I fell and broke my ankle.
Mhm.
And I wasn't able, for a while, I wasn't even able to walk well. I had to wear this monstrous monstrosity of a brace. And, the old me would have said, I'm going to get back to running no matter how much it hurts, no matter how much
Mm,
damage it does, because I'm a runner and
yeah.
this is what I do.
Mm,
And, but then I had to realize if I do enough damage to this ankle, that's going to impact my ability to run, 2 years from now, or even throughout my lifetime.
mhm,
It's going to turn into something chronic.
mhm,
And so I really had to be gentle with myself and just go on my intuition, and trust the doctor, because when I first injured I thought, oh, 2 weeks, I'll be back to it, no problem. And then I
mhm.
went to a doctor and said, no, you broke your ankle. She said,
Yeah.
you can't just, I know how you runners are, which is what they said.
Yeah, nice.
We're terrible. um
Yeah, right.
but she said, you're going to have to take this amount of time off, otherwise you're going to do serious damage if you come back too soon.
Yeah.
And I really had to trust her words,
Mhm,
and find other ways to train to
mhm.
where I would feel um, complete and satisfied, but not destroying my body at the same time. So I've become
Mhm.
quite a cyclist, because
Yeah, that's great.
cycling was really one of the best ways to really stay in shape, and
Mhm.
or stay feeling fit, and
Mhm.
maintain my endurance and leg strength. And then I was just very patient with my ankle. And even now, I have to, like, I did a long run on last Saturday, and um, ordinarily it was 13 miles, which ordinarily is pretty low mileage for me for a long
Mhm.
run. And, but I had to, just after all this time of rest that I've had for my ankle, I just knew intuitively that 13 miles is pretty impressive,
Mhm.
um, for the journey that I've had.
Mhm.
And I knew that I didn't want to push it. I wanted to basically, in a way, celebrate those 13 miles by
Mhm.
saying, wow, my body just did that. And
Yeah,
not thinking back to what I was able to do, but really learn
right.
who this new runner is. And
Yeah.
um, because you've mentioned that before, you've talked about people who were athletes, and I think you
Mhm.
referred to this in the book too. You referred to people that were athletes in their 20s or their teens,
Yeah,
and then in their 40s they feel like, well, why would I try it again, because I'm not going to, yeah, you're not going to be 20 again.
yeah, yeah,
um but that you have to make you have to adapt, and it doesn't
right.
mean you can't still play soccer, it doesn't mean you can't still
Yeah,
play football, or whatever it was.
yeah,
um
yeah,
you're not less of an athlete just because you're older and you can't
yeah,
meet the same training goals or the same expectations that you did when you were 20.
totally.
And so I have to be aware of that fact too. I'm 47 now. And
Mhm.
um, I've had to treat my body in such a way that what I'm doing is really remarkable. It might not be what I did in my 20s. It's certainly different.
Yeah,
A lot different, but it's still honoring what my body is capable of doing. And I
yeah,
still feel, even at age 47, like part of me feels like I'm just beginning.
Sure.
Um, and it's just kind of a new athlete in a way. And
Mm-hmm.
I, when I feel like I need a day off of rest, I don't say, oh my gosh, I'm getting so old, I need an extra day off of rest.
Right,
No,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm just taking care of my body and
Yeah.
trusting. I think a lot of it is about building trust with yourself and
Yeah.
knowing that whether I follow a training plan or not,
Mm-hmm.
I built this trust in my body over time, knowing when I can push hard and then when I need to rest. And all of that is within my intuition, and uh just listening to myself and saying, I think this is a good idea today to rest, and then we can come
Yeah.
grow and feel a lot stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think listening to our bodies does require a releasing of comparison,
Mm-hmm.
whether to other people and other programming or to ourselves at different times in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Like recovering from an ankle injury, you can't compare yourself to what you were doing the previous year
Right.
for whatever race, because you're in a different space, and like you said, you're a different athlete.
Mm-hmm.
So um, being able to not be externally focused but internally focused, and like just really be in tune with where you're at, and like what is a good challenge for my fitness right now today,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and not judging that,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like what you were saying, as far as even other ultra marathoners and the ones that are potentially going to win the race.
Yeah.
They're a different breed and kind of in a different league or a different space in their training in their head. There's a lot of things that are different for them, but even for them, if they were to get injured, or 15 years from now they may still be running, but they're not going to be winning the race.
Right.
So
Right.
what is your definition of success? And a lot of people have been conditioned by youth sports, high school sports, college sports, to have this kind of certain standard of
Mm-hmm.
like, if you're a professional athlete or you're a collegiate athlete or whatever, then you work out this hard this often, and if you're not, then you're a stupid lazy piece of crap.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And so then they get careers and they have families, and then in their 30s or 40s they decide, oh, I want to get back in shape, and they go to the gym, and by their own definition they're a stupid lazy piece of crap, because they can't even get close to what they used to be able to do as
Yeah.
far as volume and intensity and
Right.
frequency. And that's so not true, and we can
Mm-hmm.
see that from an objective observer standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good, like their body adapts to what they do. So if they start with something simple and don't shame themselves and feel terrible about it, and they're
Mm-hmm.
able to stay consistent with whatever it is that they can do,
Right.
they're gonna, their body remembers. They're gonna, improve their health and fitness incredibly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I like you mentioned, I love playing pickleball. There's a lot of room to grow in that. I also love soccer, but I with listening to my body, honoring my body, soccer, like as a full field, not indoor, whatever, like that may be beyond what I could regularly do,
Mm-hmm.
because I have to, even between 2 or 3 hour bouts of pickleball, it's best for me if I take a day off before doing it again the next day, because
Right.
I do I push myself, and I love the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the feeling of being exhausted after. But there are limits that I have to listen to my body for.
Mm-hmm.
So what's my
Yeah.
definition of success? Should I quit because I may never be a pro?
Right.
or
Yeah.
am I a winner because I enjoy the game and
Yeah.
I've been playing for a really long time? So
Right.
yeah, so it's like, what's your definition of success? Um, Jim Gaffigan, uh, in one of his routines, comedian, uh, when people tell him that they ran the Boston Marathon, he's like, "Well, did you win?"
Yeah. Kind of sounds like you lost the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, sounds like you
Yeah.
lost the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's like, what is your definition of success? I think any age being able to run the Boston Marathon or ultra marathon or whatever race like that
Yeah.
would be a win.
Yeah.
Um, and something that most people won't do. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, live life
Yeah. And
and enjoy it.
the comparison part is really, um, unfortunately, kind of a downfall for a lot of people. So if someone is if someone talks to me about running, and let's say they are just starting out
Mhm.
and they ran a mile, they didn't think they could run a mile, but they do it, but then they immediately say, oh well, I'll never get to 50 miles like you.
Right.
And I have to kind of remind them or tell them and be supportive of the fact that that's where I started. I mean, the first time I ran 5 miles, I told everybody
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, I ran 5 miles. I cannot believe that. And I was
Yeah.
like, hey, I ran 5 miles today. And, but it's important, I think, to not compare someone who's just starting out or wanting to run their first half marathon or 5K or
Mhm.
10K. you know I always try to emphasize that they cannot compare to what I've done,
Yeah.
um, because first of all, I was exactly where they're at currently, and they are fully capable of running an ultra marathon. I think most people really are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It does take that consistency and that
yeah.
time commitment or commitment over time,
Hmm.
to allow the body to adapt, because the body can
Right.
adapt to a million things.
Yeah.
It's given
Yeah.
enough time and
Yeah.
space to do it.
Yeah. I've had to, me and my feelings about strength training. And
Yeah.
um, it's just something I don't enjoy.
Hmm.
Um, I know how important it is for my body, um, especially as I get older, in terms of maintaining like joint health and
Yeah.
muscle mass and things like that. I know from kind of an outside perspective how important it is.
Yeah.
But I feel sometimes I've had to really let go of the fact that, well, I didn't train in such a way today, so I might as well just not do strength training at all,
Mm,
because what I'm doing is not going to benefit anything. And I've
mm,
thankfully, to listening to you and reading the book and
yeah.
just some life experience, I've learned that, if after a 20-mile run, if I have the energy to do some bicep curls or work
Mhm.
on some core strength, and even if I only spend 5 minutes doing that, if
Yeah.
I do that 5 minutes after a long run consistently,
Yeah.
then I'm going to either see or feel changes.
Hmm.
And that, my definition of strength training doesn't have to match what someone else's definition of strength training is.
Yeah.
And I've had to accept that running is my thing, and
Hmm.
I
Yep.
I don't do strength training. I mean, I really try.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really try, but it's just not a love of mine. And so
Hmm.
I have to tell myself that I can do as much as I want.
Hmm.
Um, and I should be kind of happy with whatever I put my effort into.
Hmm.
Whether it's one set of bicep curls one day and or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just really be content with what I end up doing instead of saying, well, that's all I did today, you know, and having
Right.
that
Right.
sort of attitude.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and really just celebrating what I end up doing, no matter how small it may seem. So strength
Yeah.
training has always been kind of a thorn,
Yeah. Yeah.
thorn for me because that's where I do the most comparison for
Right.
myself.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm slowly learning to
Right.
just, you know, realize that it's
Mhm.
not really my thing.
Yeah.
And everybody has, there's a lot of people that hate running, and that's
Yeah.
okay. I mean,
Right.
a lot of people that hate running,
Yeah.
and or it's just not their favorite. So
Yeah. It's the same for, you know, that's true for me. Like I'll play pickleball for 3 or 4 hours, or you know, volleyball for 2 hours, or soccer for an hour. But I won't run in a straight line. I hate running in a straight line. Yeah. So yeah, everybody, you know, is physiologically unique as well.
Mhm.
And it does adapt. Like they've shown that, like if you have more of the fast twitch muscle fibers, but then you do more endurance running, then your body actually converts over to more long twitch, or
Mhm.
slow twitch muscle fibers,
Right.
and so your body can adapt, but it's like that's a bigger process. So it
Mhm.
is good, you know, usually the way your body is physiologically designed matches where your inclination is.
Mhm.
So like you prefer to run, and so most of your muscle fibers are probably slow twitch muscle
Very much
fibers.
so.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so then it's like more of a drag to do strength training.
Mhm.
Whereas I'm kind of, my muscles are very wound. Like it seems like I'm inflexible, but I can become flexible very quickly just with a little bit of stretching. So
Mhm.
they just naturally, natively are wound.
Right.
But that's great for explosiveness and quick change of direction and agility
Right.
and leaping and all the stuff that makes pickleball and volleyball and soccer fun for me. So
Mhm.
so yeah, so that's where I'm inclined to go. So every
Right.
client that I work with, I kind of, you know, have that interview with them to kind of feel out, you know, what kind of workout person are you?
Mhm.
Do you like water? Do you like running? Do you like
Mhm.
lifting? Do you like classes? Do you like working out by yourself? Like
Right.
what's your thing, and what's your workout personality? And then build the training program around that. Because
Mhm.
even someone who does not consider themselves athletic at all and is
Mhm.
only a scholar and never wants to do anything other than sit in a chair and read books all day, or
Uh-huh.
write, or whatever, and they never have any athletic goals. They never want to, you know, hike in the mountains or
Mhm.
walk the beach or spend a day at Disneyland. Um, um, they um, they would still benefit from some movement,
Mhm.
from some strength training. And it can be super, super, super simple. Like once a week, do 3 sets of body weight squats to failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, another day of that week, you know, do some push-ups against the kitchen counter 3 times max.
Mhm.
Um, and another day, you know, bend over and lift something, you know, for a row.
Mhm.
And, you know, if they just did that, then that would make sure that they could be strong and capable and keep their balance and their joint
Mhm.
health into old age, even just being a scholar
Right. Right.
and never having any physical activity goals.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, adapting to whatever your goals are is not only appropriate, but ideal.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to go back to the relationship between PTSD or CPS, CPTS. That's hard to say.
Yeah.
Um, and exercise or fitness,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's just, I mean, I always describe my first marathon as being such a huge uh, sense of fulfillment that I
Mm.
hadn't felt as a child, certainly. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
and uh, just a sense of, for the first time, really being proud of myself.
Mm.
And the first time I had ever kind of looked at my strength and my ability to be resilient and overcome some of the things that happened to me as a child.
Mm.
And um that relationship between running and my trauma is, they're like partners for life, it feels like.
Yeah. Right.
um and uh like
Yeah.
one will give to the other, and that my running is
Mm.
basically the parent, the kind, the gentle, the parent that I should have had, that everyone deserves.
Yeah.
My running is kind of that parent.
Cool.
and and I think, you know, some people, I made a video about this on my channel, but you know, I often, basically for my mental health, go from one event to the next. And my therapist even has challenged me on that, saying that, you know, you can't just run, you just can't train from one event to the next and expect to be happy and fulfilled um and overcome trauma. And on my part, I've had to kind of stand up for myself and say,
Mm-hmm.
this is how I operate. And
Yeah.
this is, every time I finish a race, or even every time I finish a hard workout, that's a gift to myself,
Mm-hmm.
and contributes to, you know, an elevated sense of self, that I'm not that child anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm this runner and I do these events and I enjoy it and I love it. And it's a gift that I give to my body, and a celebration,
Yeah.
and that I'm not this necessarily this scared, frightened, doubtful, and shamed child anymore. I'm this, you know, slow but awesome runner.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and
Yeah.
of
So
course,
I
still
think
have days.
that what's that?
I still have days where I'm experiencing my trauma or flashbacks and things like that. Um,
Yeah.
but then I run, and
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So I mean, the process of healing, especially from trauma and CPTSD, is part of the hero journey.
Hmm.
Like we are all the hero of our own story.
Right.
And so um mostly because nobody can be more responsible for us than us.
Hmm. Hmm.
So so sometimes we fantasize about being rescued, and sometimes it really does help to have someone who understands and, you know, lends a hand and all that stuff, but they really can't be our savior.
Right.
And so we have to be our own hero. And so um connecting to ways where we embody and demonstrate power and skill and ability is really critical. And
Hmm.
so I love how running has become that for you
Hmm.
over um, getting close to a majority of your life now. I'm getting
Yeah.
close to that kind of halfway point
Uh-huh.
um, myself.
Yeah.
So where I will have lived half of my life out of that situation,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
which is weird to think about,
Yeah.
um, but yeah. So but I feel like it's important to mention that initially, sometimes there is like exercise and movement can be triggering too,
Mm-hmm.
and in ways that we don't understand.
Right.
So, whether that is, depending on the type of workout, going to a gym and being surrounded by people that seem to, even though almost everyone has insecurities, seem
Mm-hmm.
to know what they're doing and have success and all
Right.
that. That can be overwhelming.
Sure.
Plus the fact of getting your heart rate up and breathing heavy
Mm-hmm.
can make your body think that it's having a panic attack.
Right. Right.
And then lifting heavy weights, if you are strength training and actually reaching that point of fatigue where it's like I actually can't get the weight up as high
Mm-hmm.
this time, and like actually experiencing your weakness
Mm-hmm.
can be scary.
Sure. Yeah.
So the way that running has become a powerful thing for you, um, in the very beginning, it probably was more challenging, and now
Mhm.
you have so much of a literal track record
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, of success that like you have redefined what it means to be out of breath
Mm-hmm.
and to feel fatigue in your body and to have a
Right.
racing heart and all that sort of thing. So that is powerful in itself,
Mm-hmm.
that your body no longer associates all of that with having a panic attack, or at
Right.
least no longer immediately associates that with
Right.
having a panic attack. So for me, growing up weak and powerless in a world where I was dominated and controlled by my dad in every aspect, even
Mm-hmm.
thought and emotion,
Mm-hmm.
in our home until I got away at 22. Um, that was how I was defined to myself, was by my powerlessness.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't just weak physically and fatigued physically. I was energetically powerless in my own life
Mm-hmm.
and in my dad's home. And
Right.
he had control over every aspect of my life, including, as one of the extreme examples, um, um, forcing me basically to get circumcised at 15 against my will. I
Yeah.
didn't have a choice in the matter.
Right.
So he controlled every aspect of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so for me, I was obsessed with getting stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So strength was my absolute goal. And I was like,
Right.
how do I do this? And
Yeah.
it didn't work until, like I said, I started out with splitting my body into 14 different muscle groups
Mm-hmm.
and working it once a week. And then as I got stronger, I experimented with splitting it into less groups and
Yeah.
doing bigger movements that included more muscle groups, more joints, more muscle groups. And
Mm-hmm.
so then along the way, um, I add around 50 pounds of lean tissue, muscle and bone density, and
Uh-huh.
look totally different than what I was before, because
Right.
I almost added half again my body weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so um, yeah, so now, kind of like what you experienced with running, I absolutely cherish my strength workouts,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm okay with reaching fatigue and feeling weakness because I know that that is bringing more strength.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would consider myself addicted to uh feeling sore somewhere in my body. Like I need to
Right.
feel sore,
Yeah.
and I need to every day reach fatigue somewhere in my body, and I'm always cycling through different muscle groups and going to fatigue and all of that, challenging my body,
Mm-hmm.
and continually getting stronger. And one of my big I talk in the book about finding an emotional reason, and what you've already said, was that like you had this power, you used your body
Mm-hmm.
in a way that you never did when you were experiencing abuse. And
Right.
so like, you have this experience of power and strength and endurance and ability in your body that is kind of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my emotional reasons was my fatigue and just being so obsessed with like, how do I experience anything different? Like the way everybody was talking about their own experiences, um, their youth was their prime,
Mm-hmm.
and everything went downhill from there. Like, okay,
Yeah.
if it goes downhill from here,
Yeah.
and I'm experiencing all this weakness and fatigue, then I might be dead by 30.
Right. Right.
Like, and I just refuse to believe that. And
Mhm.
so one of my big motivations is how much I want to be a ridiculously strong, energetic old man.
Yeah. Right.
Like I'm going to be going into my 70s and 80s just jacked and energetic and still playing pickleball and doing
Right.
all the things. And
Yeah.
I feel confident in that because most of the symptoms of aging are actually symptoms of frailty, and people
Mm-hmm.
just like you were saying, well, I'm 35 or 47 or 52, and so I'm getting older, which is
Yeah.
always going to be true. You're
Uh-huh.
always going to be getting older, but that doesn't mean that you have to just resign to wherever your body's at, because
Right.
there's an
Yeah.
irrefutable fact that you're going to be getting older.
Yeah.
Like your body doesn't know how old it is. Your cells
Yeah.
don't know how old they are. They just know how functional they are based on what you
Right.
do.
Yeah.
So keep working, keep training. And so yeah, so I'm going to be that ridiculously strong, energetic old man. And that's part of what motivates me. Like I'm not just working out so I look good or feel good today.
Yeah.
Like it's for the decades to come.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm laying a foundation and always laying the foundation. So my foundation is going to be super thick by the
Right.
time I get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really I'm very lucky, I think, especially in the sport of ultra marathon, because there's a lot of longevity in that sport. And in fact, I there's a there's a gentleman, I've been running the same races with him for years, ever since I started running. And he's 80 now. He might even be 81,
Hmm.
still running ultra marathons, you
Yeah, that's
know.
cool.
And the one advantage, I still can't pass him either. I've been like, it's this huge thing, like one of these days I'm going to pass him.
Yeah,
um but I think what is great about this longevity, and 80-year-olds still running 50, 100, 200 miles,
yeah,
is the fact that they've really taken care of themselves.
yep.
Now, a lot of them at this point can't train every day and put in all these
Sure.
miles, but their body knows, at this point, knows what to do and
Yep,
knows what it needs. And
yep.
one reason I think that Ebb, that's his name, this 80-year-old guy, the speedster, um, still completes these races and does so ahead of so many other people that are
Mhm.
20, 30 years younger than him, is he has patience and he has trust in his body.
Yep.
He knows what he's capable of doing. And
Mhm.
um and because of him being so consistent over the years, I mean, I see him at all sorts of races,
Yeah.
um that
Mm.
he's still successful at the age of 80, because he's been patient, he's been gentle with his body, and he knows what he's capable of doing. And so
Yeah, that's
that
cool.
really excites me, because I know that I can still be running when I'm 80.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, totally.
So, yeah. Yeah, it's really exciting.
That's
So,
great.
well, we've been talking for a while.
Yeah.
Are there any last little tidbits of information you want to share?
Mm.
Either from the book or just from you, your insights or anything?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is like one of the things that I've developed as far as my own kind of philosophy of health and fitness is that I believe that the body is doing the best it can at every moment with the resources it currently has and the circumstances it's currently in.
Mhm.
And so I believe that there's always hope for healing for anything
Mhm.
because we have the option to keep learning and figuring out how do we support what the body already wants to do.
Right.
Like I believe that the body already wants to be as whole and healthy as possible. And I believe it is as whole as healthy as possible within the limits of what it's experiencing currently.
Mhm.
And it wants to be even healthier
Right.
and more whole and stronger. And so the task for us then is just to keep learning, keep experimenting, listen to the body's feedback, what seems to help, what doesn't seem to help. There's so many resources and people that are helping those who have experienced extreme things. I think of Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who is a longevity expert
Mm.
in New York, and she has incredible interviews on YouTube sharing all this knowledge. She has 17 years of education in
Yeah.
longevity
Wow.
and runs this massive practice and definitely lives what she preaches. And then Sally K. Norton is another resource. Sometimes those of us that are more sensitive and have sensitive bodies are sensitive to the anti-nutrients in certain fruits and vegetables, which is really weird thing to think about.
Mhm.
And therefore it kind of goes unobserved and undiagnosed. And so her website and YouTube channel is all about raising awareness for that. And so
Mhm.
sometimes those of us that are struggling with health, even if we're doing everything perfect,
Yeah.
um, can benefit from connecting with these experts in their field.
Mhm.
So yeah, so always believe that there is hope. Refuse to um, accept terminal diagnosis.
Right.
Meaning you're going to have this for the rest of your life, or it's just the way it's going to be. I
Mhm.
was told that about my thyroid, that I
Yeah.
would be on thyroid medication for the rest of my life, even by my naturopathic doctor. And I haven't been on thyroid for like 15 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so always believe it's possible.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I want to show everybody the cover.
Mhm.
Um, and so where can people find you? I can put your links to
Yeah.
your just for those watching, Kylar also has a YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And I can put that link in the description box. And I'll definitely put the link to this wonderful book. And
Cool.
any other ways you would like people to connect with you or
Yeah. So my website is kylarwellness.com. And my name is spelled with an A, so Kylar,
yeah.
wellness.com. And then I'm on YouTube and social media as Elvin Prince.
Mm-hmm.
So ELVN. So just those four letters, ELVN Prince. And so I'm on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube
Mm-hmm.
under that. So yeah, you can
Yeah.
find me there.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for today. I always enjoy uh, our talks, and we actually have more videos sort of that we've talked about going deeper into trauma. And that's, I think, one thing I've really talked about on this channel, Living Well with Bipolar Disorder, because I think, and kind of the experts, the science goes back and forth, you know, as to what causes bipolar disorder, what causes depression. And is it childhood? Is it environment and things like that? But I think, you know, I think the connection between trauma and mental health is so strong.
Yeah.
And and so I think subscribers and anyone watching the video will really recognize and maybe even see themselves in what we're talking about, and maybe we could be a tool for healing and or just in information gathering as well. So I really appreciate talking with you.
Yeah,
And
always good.
yeah, yeah. We've been friends for quite a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, like this video, subscribe to my channel. I'll put all of Kylar's information in the information box below, and feel free to comment. And if you read the book, let me know. I'd love to hear about it, or let Kylar know on one of his social media sites. And but then we'll just see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye.